I'm back in black, baby. How's it been going? Oh, yeah. We are going to dive into your poetry and see what you've been up to. Been a long time. Been a lonely, lonely, lonely time. All right. Woo! Let's do this, baby. Yeah, I know you missed me. I know you did. So let's dig in. Verse Ghost. Oh, I'm going to need to put on my glasses. Okay, verse Ghost. You know, ghosts often win, though. Fucking ghosts. You know, don't mess with ghosts. Melting. The heat stretches asphalt into taffy, warping our shadows into a single mass. I want to sink into your shape, slide under your shoe, and into something approximating your shape. Why approximating? What does this accomplish? Growing until I envelop you with nightfall. So, are you like a personification of that, then? I want to be pollen, humidity, construction dust, saturating you with the commingling smells. Oh, that's a little bit of a reach. Of sugar and tar. The smells of sugar and tar are good, okay. I want you to breathe me. Okay, well, we get the point, okay? You definitely want to become one in a very intimate way with the beloved. We know that, but what's preventing you from doing that? What's the drama here? What's the agon? What's the tension or agon? What's the agony? The thing that prevents you from doing this? We need some rhetorical tension to this poem to tell us why this love cannot, or passion cannot be fulfilled the way it is. Notice we're sitting right about 14 lines. I don't know, maybe a little bit more. Well, right about 14 lines. You can just eyeball this and see it's right about sonnet length. So sonnet is naturally this address to the beloved, this desire to connect and to unify. But there's usually a pivot, what's called a volta in a sonnet, and the volta would usually come somewhere around here. We would want to see, after the first 8 lines, we'd want to see a volta somewhere in here. But there really isn't one. Exhale one puff and I'll burst into seed, dandelion-headed, a weed achieving flight, an everyday possibility this melting afternoon. So it just kind of continues to narrate the desire and the longing. There's no pivot to reflection. There's no pivot to introspection. Not to say that this needs to be a sonnet or could benefit from being a sonnet, but rough and ready, the number of beats that it has, and the length, and the style, and the content, all of these things are sonnet-esque. So if you're looking for revision strategies, verse Ghost, I would verse sonnet, become versed in the sonnet and what it does and how it works. And that could introduce this conceit idea or rhetoric in your poem to create this tension of why your passion can't be fulfilled, or why it's not so easy or so simple. And that can help then with this personification issue too, since sonnets often do introduce a conceit of you are like this, or I am like this to you. You can open a sonnet with those gambits and then explore the complexity of that. If it's not that, then it's this, and you can heighten the tension with those types of things. So give that a thought. All right, let's go on to mush poetry. Hopefully it's not mush. Catching the taste of blood. I'm gonna goddamn kill that. I'm gonna kill that goddamn dog. My father's eyes smoked in the sideways morning drizzle like the barrels of a shotgun. So this is prose, basically. My father's eyes smoked in the sideways morning drizzle like the barrels of a shotgun. And I would like to tell you exactly why that's prose, but I think because the type of hyperbole is or someone's nostrils or eyes smoking like a shotgun evokes a kind of almost comic book or pulp fiction-y type of setting, where things are going to be a little bit overstated, over the top, four color, simplified, kind of a little bit about pleasing some of the reader's desires for over-the-top characters and motives and conflicts in a way that poetry typically has a much lower, more nuanced, less rushed. Not always, but typically, poetry is going to witness things in a way that is less charged, less about bringing its own emotion to describing something, and let the emotions of those things unpack so that the reader can kind of, instead of the reader being told how to think or feel about something, the reader essentially is able to infer and grow into the emotions of the scene as they read it. Well, this is also definitely narrating. So we have the end of this sentence with the end of the strophe, and then we continue to narrate. Most short poetic forms can't really narrate very effectively. They're not set up to do that. They're not designed to do that. The tradition of lyric poetry doesn't have that much narration in it. There are some exceptions. Storytelling is certainly possible, but it's typically done in showing a single instant, studying the instant, and letting the before and after essentially be implicit in that instant or then meditated upon at some point in the poem. This is definitely going to try to narrate. And the only form that I know of that's really excellent and superb at narration in a shorter length would kind of be the ballad and the ballad tradition. The ballad tradition also allows for a little bit more hyperbole and myth making. That's just kind of where ballads come from. Also, since we have these four lines here, 4, 4, 4, 4, we are kind of naturally ballad-like, but there's sonically, aurally, there's nothing about dog, drizzle, shotgun, smoked. I don't know. I'm not getting any ballad rhythm, any ballad cadence, any ballad near rhyme, slant rhyme, and anything. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure why Mush sent this to me. Maybe Mush felt wanted some help on how to attack this type of problem. I think when you're dealing with the death of animals and these types of situations, we want to simplify as much as possible. See how we introduce this Eli character here. I don't know if Eli is the dad or the brother or whatever, but we're going to need to situate the reader as quickly as possible with introducing all of the characters in the scene, and lowering the emotional kind of don't tell us about these emotions yet. I don't know that we really need to open the poem with these speaking lines. Ballads can have these speaking lines like that. You could consider that, but I also consider changing your tone to be more. The ballad tends to have this lament characteristic. I'm not hearing that much lamenting yet. So be more on the day my father killed our dog would kind of set up rather than catching the taste of blood. The day my father killed our dog, I don't know, or put our dog down. I don't know. I would say, ultimately, you're going to have to find examples of poems that are going to try to achieve what you want to achieve done by master poets. So if you can find examples, I think Donald Hall has some names of horses that would be perhaps a poem to look at. I'm sure there's some other poems that would come to mind. William Carlos Williams has a poem about, what was it called? Like, has some crazy name like Absolute Destruction or something like that, but it's about the death of a cat and the burying their pet cat. So these things do come up in poetry relatively frequently, and you want to study the tone and the approach that these masters take. I think you're going to throw off your prospective publishers and editors really quickly opening the poem with "My father's eyes smoked in the sideways morning drizzle at the barrels of a shotgun." It's just not suitable for poetry. It would be suitable for pulp fiction. So it just can't fit really. Certainly not in literary poetry. Okay. Speaking of stuff that doesn't really fit, Footpad's poet is back. I'm not sure why. Footpads, why are you back? We talked about your work last trolling episode, and I said you had some interesting things going on in one of your line where you had two lovers looking out together, but the poem ultimately was too sentimental, too simplistic, and it didn't. The premise wasn't strong, and the execution wasn't strong either. So let's look at the premise. Let's see if you can find a premise for a poem that's going to work. The universe and your conclusion. So this "your" here. So this is saying that there's going to be either a poem written completely from the second person, right? So like you walk down the street and you spot a $20 bill under the highway overpass, right? That would be a "your" poem, right? So, or it could be me and you. I feel this about you, right? That would be another way to use second person. Have the sonnet formulation of the speaker and the beloved. And I use the word beloved a ton on this channel because beloved is a way to refer to the you or the thou that's been part of the Western tradition of romantic verse, meaning, romantic, not the romantics, but romantic topics, since people were first, since the troubadours, even before the troubadours. So the you, the thou, that is a really big deal, right? So, but I don't know which "your" this is, and it's going to be the job of a poet to tell us very quickly which one that is. From the Big Bang period doesn't tell us. Time began doesn't tell us. When matter materialized doesn't tell us. Debris flew off on a voyage doesn't tell us. The far space, blah, 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 blah. This poem is going nowhere. We're not scientists, okay? Maybe some of us are, but most of us aren't. Most of us haven't studied astrophysics, quantum mechanics, and if we have, we're dilettantes, okay? We use the tools and technology of verse, of poetry. That's our area of expertise, and if we can't convince with that, we can't talk about anything else that we want to. By putting this "your" here and then not having any I or you, you have failed a basic mission of your poem. Instead, you start to talk about stuff that the reader has to believe you have no qualifications to talk about, right? How do we get authority? How do we gain authority so that our poems convince? How is that done? Well, if you're writing about flowers and you're a poet, you should know your flowers. You should know the different parts, and the stamens and the petals, and the stems and all this stuff. You should convince with your ability to observe and give detail, right? What detail does this offer? If you instead opened scientists tell us, or according to the, whatever, put a subtitle here about something from a physics article you read, even if it's from, Popular Physics or whatever. Put a little subtitle, from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Put that subtitle up there so people can see it. Okay? And then riff on that. Go from that. Get to this U as quickly as possible. Footpads, don't send me this stuff. Okay? Send me stuff that's taking the craft of poetry seriously. Next time you send me a poem, tell me the name of the major, significant published poet who you believe you are doing a similar thing to that poet and that poem. Send me the comparison poem, the model poem. You need to spend some time performing apprenticeship where you humble yourself and you study people who have succeeded and gained authority in poetry, and you imitate them. You try to write like them. It sounds boring and derivative, and I know you want to be original, you want to make your own name, but you're not ready. You're not ready yet. Apprentice yourself first. The next poem you send me, I'm going to demand a reference. Okay? Thank you. The Last Corn Dog, after the bombardment. I pitch through a shell-shocked crowd whose screams of awe have faded into murmurs. So in terms of setting the scene, this is good. You see how we open with the I? Can't do any better than that. And we get the shell-shocked crowd, so we know what happened. It ties right into the title. There's no, bait and switch with this poem, whose screams of awe have faded. And we know the type of awe that we're talking about is not like awe, like, ooh, it's like more dread. Into murmurs of working class stiffs. Okay, so I think this is a little bit of a miss, perhaps, because the murmurs of working class stiffs stiffs them too, and pulls us out of a deep sympathy and intimacy with their lives and their pain and the event. And the reader's going to wonder, what was this that happened? Where did this happen? What's the circumstances of this? And I think this then kind of stiff arms a little bit the reader, pushes them away from your poem with this kind of sudden introduction of invective, which might be accidental. You might not have wanted to use an epitaph this invective for them. It ends up pushing them away. Who will jam their aching limbs into 2-ton steel crates at the crack of dawn. So this 2-ton steel crate thing has been done a lot. So we've already seen cars characterized in this way. What's accomplished by doing that? Why not? Why do we need to know that they're 2-ton steel crates, unless that was part of this disaster, unless it was a car bomb or a car crash or something like that? Let's just take a quick look at this next stanza. A haze of sulfur hangs in a sickening miasma. Why, though? How does this time? We still don't know what's happened. The breath of some rough beast slouching toward hell. So this is just a Yeats ripoff here. It could be an allusion to Yeats, the Second Coming, but it's not. It's not set up well enough for this to really work as a nod to that. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot see the falconer. I think sometimes when we use illusion, we make the reader miss that poem. They wish they were reading that one as well, instead, right? So I certainly wish at this point I were reading Yeats and not The Last Corn Dog, and that's not good. That's that's like I don't know. Hard to be the opening act for Yeats, right? So you got to find a way to honor his original poem and cue that we're going to be talking about that. But that's not the main issue of this poem. The main issue is we have to establish the significance of this lyric incident of whatever this bombardment or explosion was. Is this World War II? Is this recent? Is this in Ukraine? What's going on? And give some of the characters or the denizens in this story some dignity, and see how that goes. All right, Iseni Dusk. An Iseni Dusk. I don't know what an Iseni Dusk is. So anybody else knows what an Iseni Dusk is? They're smarter than me. Hats off to them. Laurels. No hills grow on these drained stretches of fen. Good. So you see how that opens with the no. It's a little bit of rhetoric here or negation, which actually ends up drawing the reader further in, because we want to know. That creates tension and excitement that no hills grow. And the growing is also somewhat interesting because we don't think of hills as growing. They're not like shrubs or something like that. So instead, the fen, which would these marshlands become inorganic in a sense. They become something kind of anti-nature because the no hills grow. So there's a lack of growth. There's a lack of rejuvenation or rebirth here. So that's an interest. That's a bold opening. I stand on a flat spine of unease, which justifies this unease. The no hills grow justifies the deployment of this unease. So, a lot of, if we're trying to compare this poem to Catching the Taste of Blood, look at how subtly and how expertly and how economically Laurels is getting us to this, only the second line here gets us so much. This M dash is also pretty effective. It should be an M dash. It's a single dash, but whatever. It's Reddit formatting, right? We're good. This dash then drives the reader, ends up driving the reader into the second line because of this. It's not just the fact that it's a doohickey on the page. That's not what I'm saying. It's grammatically correct to have this dash here. And that it accentuates the pause of someone looking over this landscape. You can feel the speaker looking over the landscape, which justifies this I. This I becomes bigger. I stand becomes more oppositional. And this flat then, flat spine. It's just very, very, very well done. With my feet sinking in damp gaps between bones. Okay. It's not as world class as the first two lines, but I think we've earned some a pause here. It's fine. No hills grow on these drained stretches of fen. I stand on a flat spine of unease with my feet sinking in damp gaps between the bones. So this line is a little less economical. I think bones is we already have spine, so I'm not so sold on the bones, but I guess it depends on the theme of the poem. I suppose that my forebearers, right? We would need an ER. unless your ancestors are bears, yeah, in the end, would have perused this muddy expanse. Perused, I think we don't need this. If they're bears, they don't read the landscape. They just run around it because they're bears. Would have perused this muddy expanse and stared at its horizon, kissing reed beds. Well, I want to be really, really fair to this poem. So the poem has earned a lot of respect from me in its opening. So I don't want to dismiss, now we're talking about authority, guys. The authority that this poem has gained for me as a reader, that's not going to instantly ebb. So you buy yourself kind of a lot of rope to hang yourself when you open a poem well. It's so important to open a poem well. And if you fuck around a little bit in the middle of the poem, all right, but maybe you're trying to do something. Maybe you're trying to get somewhere. Maybe you're trying to take a bigger risk. If you earn yourself that space to work, which this poem does, maybe those big risks in the middle of the poem could pay off. Let's find out. Their mouths would have trembled and eyes watered before they heard it in the distance. Pale horses trotting in the alder thickets. So what is this poem about? We don't know anything about the author, right? We know literally nothing about them, right? So we don't have a human name, and there's no subtitle here which would situate us. So we can't guess at their own ancestry or where they came from or anything like that. That can be nebulous, right? But if we saw a really Celtic name for this writer, that might cue us that something was up, right? That we're talking about, that the pale horses trotting in the alder thickets were perhaps English people invading, coming to conquer. But it could be Romans. It could be Romans coming, right? I don't know. Or this could be a completely different place in the world. For all I know, this isn't in the British Isles, although there's a lot of clues to me that it might. I mean, if this were the Americas, this could be from the perspective of native peoples. But the paleness there, ties into the whiteness of the invaders, the pale faces. So, I don't want to guess and be wrong, but it feels to me more like this is just the type of vocabulary here is more likely to be British Isles. Why would their mouths tremble and eyes water before they heard it in the distance? So I guess that's fear, right? Intriguing. I think Laurels has huge chops here. A little echoes to me of Auden, perhaps in this opening. I don't know. Gorgeous opening. Certainly the first two lines are some of the better that we've seen, on this channel. So congratulations. I think you lose me completely in the middle, and not just sorry to joke about the Bears, but the perused here is wrong. Muddy is wasted. So what? I mean, you've already established everything you need to establish here. Now it's time to execute. Now it's time to show us. We don't need to see them staring. You could, if you want to make a kind of parallelism, you could show them doing some similar type of standing and some similar type of unease and some similar type of sinking. But it can't be literally repeating the action of the first tercet. We need to do something different in this, have them taking some other action. And it should be active. It should be showing something about their lives and insight into this connection. Before then, we introduce this threat, presumably threat of kind of colonialism. And I guess I could Google Iseni to try to figure out exactly where in the world we are. And I'm sure there'll be tons of smart people who jump in on the channel and comment. So I try not to do a lot of research before I read. And I'd like to explain why that is, folks. And why I often don't read a poem through and all these other things. I think people jump on, you don't read the poem through, and you should research this, and why wouldn't you know that and that? Well, just imagine, ladies and gentlemen, just imagine, okay? Imagine a world where instead of posting your stuff on Reddit for instant approval, you sent it out to a literary magazine, right? Which receives thousands and thousands and thousands of submissions, right? That editor is going to be squeezing in some time around their other responsibilities and duties. Maybe they're a professor, maybe they are an established or even famous poet in their own right. They do a lot of different stuff. It's going to be Saturday afternoon or at the pub or, Sunday with a hangover or whatever it's going to be. Or it's going to be late on Tuesday night, when you want to go to bed and instead you brew a cup of tea and you kick down to read through some of the slush that's been building up. What kind of mood do you think they're going to be in? Are they going to be in a mood to go and Google every fucking word that comes up? No, they either know it or they don't, right? Are they going to be in a mood to read your whole poem if it opens weakly or if it just has a tone like Catching the Taste of Blood that just isn't going to be a fit for their journal? No, they're going to read these 2 lines, right? And then their eye is going to jump up and down a little bit. It'll jump up and down the spine of the poem, the beginning, how the lines begin and how the lines end. They'll gaze at the end of the poem, maybe, if you're lucky, and they'll gaze back at the beginning, and then they'll move on. They, in their own mind, will have claimed that they read the whole poem. That's what they will tell everybody. But in reality, effectively, in terms of a detailed, multi-sensory, both cognitive and emotional read before their defenses go up, they only read the first 2. After that, the shields are up, the armor's there, nothing's necessarily going to get through unless something very spectacular happens. They're just doing a scan of the rest. Okay? I had the privilege and the honor to study with a professor who edited a major American literary journal. And I asked him frequently about how he read submissions, and he read all of them himself, personally, for this major American magazine. Every single submission. And it seemed impossible to me that this could be something that he did as one person with no help. And nevertheless, he could take a poem of mine, 30-line poem. He could just hold it out like this, right? Just hold it out, hold it up, on frame, whatever. You guys get the idea. He'd hold it up, look at about 10 seconds, and he would tell me everything I needed to know about my poem in incredible detail. It's a specialized type of reading. It's a specialized skill that develops not in 6 months, not in 2 years, but this is a lifetime of these folks reading poetry at a very, very high level. Oh, they make mistakes. They make frequent mistakes. The signal to noise ratio is really, really tough. They make a lot of errors, and they would freely admit that. But it's a tough job, right? It's not paid an incredibly large amount. Sometimes it's paid nothing. You have got to find a way to get past these defenses, ladies and gentlemen, and you have to put up a good fight the way Laurel's does. Even if this poem in Laurel's submission doesn't get published, and I would suspect it might not be, Laurel's is going to earn some credit where when they go to the next poem in the packet, they're not already bored and suspicious. While this poem here, for example, they're going to be like, well, you can write, you have chops, but like, what's the point? What are you trying to accomplish? Why should this poem be part of a journal which shows what poetry is capable of? Yeah, it has gorgeous moments, but is that enough? Unfortunately, gorgeous can become just another commodity. Okay. So, we do need to give him one of these. Good work, Laurels. And yeah, I'm sure I missed some of the finer points, but I don't think I missed the big picture, ladies and gentlemen. Send me your stuff, folks. Flag it with the workshop tag. Flag it with workshop. Send it my way. If you're a repeat customer, please explain what you've been working on, what you've been reading, who inspires you, and who you would like to write more like. Would very much help me help you. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you all very soon.